All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Against the Grain. I'm the 8-Bit Reptile. Now, this video is a bit later getting out. I do apologize for that, but the reason is that we've had a shocking week, and I usually don't get frustrated or annoyed when I'm playing Supercoach and all that sort of stuff because I do enjoy the game. However, I'm just was a little bit mad with myself this week because I ended up changing the trades that I initially had mapped out for myself on my triple upgrade. And that kind of led to the disastrous result of the difference between me winning my Supercoach Cup battle and losing. And the other side of that, I had a puncher's chance heading into the absolute last game. And I had a head-to-head matchup with Noah Anderson and basically Clayton Oliver. I think I was down about 10 or 12 points or so. So heading into that game, I was optimistic that maybe Nando could get up for me. But he ended up being absolutely decimated in that matchup. And he kicked the first goal. I was up and about. I was like, yeah. But then obviously Oliver just went ballistic and started to really, really get me. So unfortunately, we're out of Supercoach Cup contention now. I was hoping that, for the channel's sake, we would be feisty in that front. We were so patient. We waited so long to do our final triple upgrades. And then, again, I just tried to be too cute with it. I shit the bed with my trades. I changed what my initial strategy was, and it just cost me big time. And now my team doesn't look anything like what I wanted it to look like. And yeah, it's just been a disaster. So I'm not going to show my rank or my scores or anything week to week. All that we're going to focus on now is kind of increasing our rank. So as a little segue to that, I'll just click that up in the top right. I'll show week to week sort of how many ranks we went up. And to be honest, on a down scoring week, when we made a triple upgrade and our rank is absolutely horrendous, to only go up 2,100 spots, while it is green and we will take it, it's not really where we should have been. And sort of a score in the 2200s would have been quite feisty this week, and that's what we were looking at. Probably more of sort of a mid 21s, because we did have some guys that totally struck out for us. And yeah, so we just didn't produce on a week where we absolutely had an opportunity to. So just on that, guys, look, hopefully we can beat some teams as people lose more and more interest as the season goes on, and sort of what they're playing for sort of gets away from them like it has for us. But it's so important for our channel. We're a super small channel here at Against the Grain. So if you could ever pop a like or even send a sub over our way, it really does spur us on and gives us massive amount of encouragement. Like every single like, every single follow is such a huge deal for us as a burgeoning, a trying to get a foothold on this in this creative content community. So yeah, moving on. Look, we'll do the team rundown. Also, some other changes is that I'm going to absolutely just ignore the flex spot for my team now. I'm going to go old school, 2022 Supercoach before the flex was introduced. And I'm just going to run my team as a straight 22 and ignore the 23rd, because I just think it's unrealistic for me to even consider trying to get to that 23rd, premium. Like there's going to be some real dodgy picks coming up in the next few weeks for us, that's for sure. But we're going to stay true and keep going. Yeah. So any support you can throw our way, comments, likes, follows, really keeps the channel afloat. And also for this season, we're learning some crucial lessons. I'm jotting those down as I go along. And hopefully that'll give us that springboard into next year when we're looking at it, and give us some really good video ideas to help you guys in the community. So I still think I can offer some research and some advice as to some picks that you guys might not have been thinking about. But yeah, as far as my rank is totally cooked, and my scoring potential is out the window. So we're just going to hopefully keep ticking along in that green zone. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get into the team review and how poorly it did. So First up, Luke Parker, who, has his average has dropped off this 66. He was looking like D1. Obviously, he can bounce back. I'm not totally out on this pick. It was just disappointing this week because he was such a pod for him to squeeze out a 66. Had opportunities in that game, but just didn't score well. Sinclair, another one that's sort of coming down. Even with his 93, he's able to, and his slump in form over the last few weeks, he's still retained a better average than Parker has off that one bad score. So Sinclair has also dropped off for us in scoring potential, and he's only given us a 93 there. It's been terrible across the board. Dane Zorko, 108. Good to see him back in the side. Did Zorko things, scoffed up a lot of the kick-ins, got that easy chip-up ball as he does, and scored a nice 108. Josh Worrell, an 89. Look, I'm really concerned about the Worrell pick at this point. I think with the inclusions coming back into this Adelaide side, and Worrell really hasn't been putting the points on the board, I don't, with an average of 99, I can probably see him coming back more to like a 90 average. So that's a concern for someone that's obviously going to be a keeper. Sam Grillage, this was another pick of mine or a decision that I made that really wrecked my score. I elected to keep Sam Grillage in my team, thinking that the trip out and game against West Coast, he would see potentially a spike in score. Obviously, he gave us a 34, and like I said, it kind of ruined our trade plans a little bit. And a 34 on field, which ended up being the score that rolled out of our whole team score, it just wasn't worth bringing in or leaving in, I should say. And another reason was, like, I looked at my bench cover and kind of loops, and I tried to prioritize that over actually getting the picks that I wanted. And that's such a huge mistake at this point of the season, because bench cover, it's handy, but you shouldn't be basing decisions around it. At this point, you should be absolutely targeting the players you want to get in your final team if they hit that price that you're happy to pay for. Just disregard any kind of rookie spike scores or bench cover or loops at this stage of the season. It's just totally irrelevant. And as you can see in my situation, it's absolutely cooked my season trying to outsmart and do that. So anyway, Bo Allen was ended up being our captaincy loop, which whatever. It was part of this whole trade situation. The fact that the Bulldogs had the first game and I had Jakes and Butterick both in my defensive slots, which cost me last week. I decided to prioritize moving them out and getting bench cover in my backline, which was just so stupid. It didn't work at all. Blamires was a nice late in. This factored into my decision making on who I was going to trade and who I was going to keep. Ended up keeping Blamires because he had a low break even, which was the right decision. However, prioritizing getting him into our backline to offer that support was not the right idea. Perez continues to not be named in Hawthorn's side, but hopefully he gets back in soon. I think they've had Scrimshaw has scored poorly and is not performing, so maybe Perez gets another look there, but watch this space anyway. Can't do anything with him. He's made almost no money, so we'll just sit on the bench in the loop spot. Okay, moving to the midfield. Zach Field, Butters with a 117, continues to truck along and hand out some pretty handy scores. Wasn't quite as dominant in the showdown as I thought, and had I kept my initial trade plans, Butters would have got the VC and we would have held that score. I wouldn't have gambled on a 117 because, as you can see, Bontempelli, who we did choose to bring in, who did lose cash as well, only gave us a 118. So that was another reason why the trades just went totally sideways. Yeah, so that was another reason why our trades went totally sideways. I decided that Bont was at a lower score a lower price that he was worth picking up. He did have a monster break even of 160, but he generally does pretty well against the Dockers. So we jumped on the opportunity to get him. Hoped for a spike score, didn't get it. He's come down in price a little bit, although his break even is totally leveled out now. So if you don't have Bontempelli, this is probably the lowest price he's going to be for the whole season. So I would, if you're in position to do it, I would suggest picking him up this week, which is what we should have done. However, we gambled. Look, I'm not too unhappy with the Bontempelli pick. To get Bontempelli at 600k is still pretty good buying. But it meant that I had to look at a lower target for one of my other bring-ins, which is what we ended up doing, which cost us the round. Lachie Neale, a 92, was absolutely robbed of his 100 at the end of that game. He gave a handball on the boundary line, which the umpires deemed was a throw. And then I think he kind of pointed at the replay board when it was clearly a handball, and the umpires certainly don't like when you do that. So he was given a 50-metre penalty on top of that. This was like in the last 2 minutes of the game, and that sort of made his score scale back to a 92. He was well on target for 100, so disappointing there, but still a good game from Lachie. Sam Walsh gave us a 71. Look, disappointing. Call it a floor score. Walsh continues to be an okay pick. I'm happy to stick with Walsh to the end of the year. He's not my worst pick. Still value if you're looking to round out your team, and you're looking at sort of an M8 for Sam Walsh. Not a bad choice. 522 is still pretty sharp buying. It's basically what his starting price was. So yeah, I'm happy with Sam Walsh, and probably end up being my M7, because my M8 is going to be Noah Anderson, who I'm just going to call No Anderson for the rest of the year. Look, continues to rack up the ball, but he's just not using it well, and he's not affecting the contest at all with his possession. Kicked a nice early goal, and I thought, here we go, we're on our way. But then just watched him sort of just junk it up and play a pretty disgusting brand of footy, which he's been playing all year. And further to that, Gold Coast just aren't the team that we thought they were going to be at this point. Maybe the Rao inclusion helps them out and helps their scoring across the board. But just for right now, this guy isn't it. However, at 486,600 for a guy to fall this far, look, as another one alongside Walsh as an M8 potential for your side, maybe your last midfield spot. But we're going to talk about some picks later on in the episode. But yeah, Noah Anderson, terrible starting pick. Should be Dacos, and we would be so much further ahead. But anyway, moving on, it is what it is. William Dersma gave us another 93. Look, really solid pick. We picked him up as a mid-pricer, not as a rookie. I'll always keep reiterating this, but 93, had Richmond, fairly soft matchup, did what he needs to do. Look, this guy's a competitor, good user of the footy, takes the game on, does affect the contest, and a great watch too. One of the shining lights for West Coast is watching this guy get along, and he'll be a leader at that club within a year, if not already. Tanner Bruin, 72. Look, was weighing up whether this was the guy to move on. I think his average sits at about 92 to 95 for the rest of the year. Has a reasonably low break even, but look, this is like what I said earlier. If you're looking at these guys who have sort of maxed out in price, and they get you to an uber premium along with a downgrade rookie trade, I'd say just do it. Get those scores in, lock those players away, because you never know what's on the horizon and who's going to just shoot up in value. For someone that might be waiting, might dump a massive ceiling score, and you won't be able to get them. So, look, if Tanner Bruin is an avenue for you to get to where you need to go, then by all means trade him. But we'll be holding him for another week just based on the low break even, and got bigger issues obviously, and we need that scoring punch. Milan Murdoch, 61. Look, this is another case in point here. Milan Murdoch punched out two really big scores, and people jumped all over him. Now, if you think of other picks along these lines, you've got Farrow, who was doing 80s and 90s. and now Sam Cummings for Richmond as well has now punched out 280s. People just go absolutely out of their minds for these picks. These rookie picks almost always, unless you're William Dersmo, who's been probably the number one pick of the bunch, and a Braden Cook sort of type, these guys always fall back to earth and their cash gen just dries up. So don't be so enamored with these early sort of spike scores from rookies. Two things tend to happen. One, their identity becomes known to other teams and they get scouted a little bit more and sort of, what their unknown abilities, which leave them to get easy points early. Teams kind of clamp down from that. Like a good defensive team will always take a player's best option away from them and make them do something secondary. And if those players don't have that in their bag and can't find another avenue to score, it certainly caps what their potential to be. So just having said that, look, there'll be a massive spike in Sam Cummings this week, who has put out 280s, and he is a high draft pick and a highly touted rookie. I wouldn't be like looking at him as my number one downgrade target this week. Now, look, I'm going to move, when I do my trades, I'm going to move to Burton from Richmond. I have no confidence in that pick. It's purely a cash play. He's a $99,000 rookie. But the rookie that I would actually be looking to bring into my side if I was playing a straight up game would be Will Edwards for Sydney. I think that guy, at 119K, where Cummings is at, I think he's at sort of we'll call it 180. It's around that mark. He has that job security, 119,000, like we said, is going to be a slow burn. He's not going to be a guy on field, but with sort of the injuries that Sydney's having and the job he's doing, I think he's a solid pick for defense as sort of a cash generator that would never, ever touch the field. But he's my pick for rookies. So again, don't be enamored with these 80s that Cummings is pushing out, because yes, he'll get that initial sugar hit of price, but I can almost guarantee that he'll be pushing out 60s or maybe lower in the coming weeks once it becomes a known quantity. And Richmond have a massive injury list. Who's to say who's coming in, who's coming out of that side? I mean, Taranto will return this week. Who's to say what that will do to his scoring potential? But anyway, a lot of people aren't going to listen to me. They're going to go with Cummings as the number one brought in target. And you're welcome to do that and prove me wrong, like I've proved myself wrong pretty much all year. Okay, Jai Sarong, someone we decided to keep based on his spike score. Look, I knew he was going to give us a lower score this week, being at the SEG. So basically look at Sarong in a similar vein that we looked at Noah Anderson last year, where when he was at home, he scored massively. And then when he had to travel, his scores weren't that great. Sarong has the opposite, where the SCG sort of tightness of that ground really hinders his scoring potential. So I would say don't loop him if you're going to keep him. Don't loop him. Don't field him in SCG games, and then field and loop on traveling games, on Marvel especially, because he tends to score really well there. So anyway, if you're keeping Sarong, that is, it's also time you could cash him out. If you held him this long, he did give a little bit of that cash back, but I'm expecting another, not a spike score, but a higher score than he's punched out this week. And I'll be continuing to hold him for at least one more week to facilitate some trades down the line. Now, Anderson here was a massive issue, him giving us 20 in that early game. I think probably also really factored into why I made the moves that I did. I was hoping probably for a fieldable, sort of loop score from Anderson, as he has been producing in the prior weeks. And also, here's another example of, hey, a guy that's just trucking along, scoring well, looks like a must-have, got to get him in, going to punch out 60 to 70 every week. And here he is with a 20 off a full game as a rookie. So it does happen, and it will happen. So, just when you're thinking about your rookies that you're bringing in at this stage, value matters. I think value and role and job security matter more than spike scores. So anyway, I'll keep ramming that point home. Watkins didn't play, is doing okay in the sample apparently, so maybe gets an opportunity again, but he's another one of these dead rookies with Perez. and now Rogers in my side that really don't have enough cash on their head for me to do anything with. So I've just got to hold them and use them as loops, I guess, for the time being. Now, moving to the ruck line, my favourite player, Mr. Jordan Sweet. Love watching this guy get around it. You know, he's a big physical presence out there, but he's also got like a really good game sense about him. He does try to knock the ball to advantage. He takes possession in the ruck and tries to release handballs to the advantage of his team. He does have, you know, like I said, some really good game sense, a little on the slow side, which does tend to let him get caught sometimes, but I think he's a good footballer, and I'm happy to have him, and will progress into my ruck 2 position eventually. But churning out 116 and averaging 111 is right there, a tier under these Uber rucks. So yeah, happy to have him and hold him in my have him and hold him in my side for the remainder of the year. Lockie McAndrew, we held here as well. Another guy a lot of people look to get out. Does look to be labouring. Had a great game. Scored a 91. I'll probably look to hold him as long as he holds his spot into the Richmond matchup this week, which potentially could be good. I think they're at Adelaide Oval again. I might be wrong there, but I wouldn't expect him to travel. But anyway, after this week, I'm probably looking to move McAndrew out, irregardless of what he does. Even if he punches out a 120, which would be amazing. It's probably bye-bye time for McAndrew for us. I've got to look to get in a better ruck with higher scoring potential. Looks most likely like it'll be English when he bottoms out, but I think it's certainly not this week because I think he has another high break even, throwing up a pretty subpar score last week. But yeah, anyway, McAndrew's been a great serviceman for our team and for a lot of teams out there. But yeah, he's coming to the end of the road of his purpose. So we'll be looking to move him on. If I can't move him to flex or get to a ruck through another spot, but I just need that cash on his head to make a decent enough upgrade. Oscar Steen, another one, a 47. Look, happy to hold him. Hopefully he holds his spot and just continues to generate cash. May come into maybe a bit handy over the bye period to cover for whoever my other rucks are at that point. Would like to definitely be out of McAndrew by round 12 bye. But yeah, that's enough on McAndrew and Steen. But yeah, hopefully he can give us some better scores and hold his spot. Harry Sheasel pumped out his worst score, I think, for the year, an 82. Look, fine, keep. He's going to do that from time to time. Just make sure if you are looking at him as a captain option, you VC him and not see him, because yeah, he has a potential to throw up scores like this. But you know, at 118.6, sorry, obviously he is F1 for the season. Maybe Petraka comes in and steals that away. Now, speaking of Petraka, we shied away from the Petraka pick and brought in Jason Horne-Francis as a value pick. Oh, look, I'm happy with the pick. Horne-Francis had a low break even, but I just didn't need to make a value play last week, and I found myself doing that. I still could have brought in Bontempelli. I still could have brought in my other trade, which was Naz, and still bought in Petraka if I was just willing to cull, you know, the rookies with more cash on their heads, and it's absolutely time of the year to do that. So I tried to outsmart it and hold Grilge for no reason. It burnt me. It's cost me my year. Don't do that at this time of the season for yourselves. But like we said last week, you've really got to map out who your targets are and just stick to them. No matter what. Don't worry about value. Don't worry about value on a week-to-week basis. Obviously, we still need value in our team. We still need to find value, and we're going to talk about that later. But look, on a week I was doing a triple upgrade. I absolutely should have prioritized points, and it's why the video is late. I'm kicking myself. I'm absolutely kicking myself. I would have taken down a guy in the top 40,000 for Supercoach Cup, and we would have been feisty. And we would have had, so initially, our initial trades were Kasiah Pickett, Petraka, and Nas. We ended up going with Bontempelli, Nas, and Jason Horne-Francis. And if I just stuck to that initial 3. I'm not unhappy with the Bontempelli get, but I mean, again, I've got to trust my gut, because I was the only one saying, and I put it to a few content creators and forums and things. I was like, what do we think about this Pickett getting the tag from Jordan? And everyone was like, no, he's going to clamp him. He's going to, and I was like, I even said it in the video. I said, I don't think Pickett is actually taggable, and certainly not by James Jordan anyway. Maybe a Mullen might be able to do a little bit more than Jordan, but I've been watching Pickett run all day and, you know, just burn people off that are trying to put any kind of defensive pressure on him. And I should have trusted my assessment of that and gone with that pick, and our team would look so much better than it does. And now with the Jason Horne-Francis pick, I'm now kind of barred from picking up a Petrarca now. Yeah, so now that we've put Jason Horne-Francis in our team, he's the round 12 buy that we've chosen to keep in our forward line. It absolutely should have been Petrarca, and now I can't really get Petrarca unless I can work him into my midfield somehow. But from a value prospect, you know, it was a triple upgrade, and it needed to be exactly that, and a triple upgrade, not a value pick. You know, trying to have my cake and eat it too there. Now we're stuck with Horne-Francis, who I don't mind. The role is there. Look, he copped a few knocks, as Horne-Francis does, and good on him for staying out there and still producing a 75. It's a higher score than it could have been, but the pick has just cooked my season. Anyway, moving on. Tim Kelly, 121. Look, a great score, and you know, Tim Kelly just continues to be who he is, which is a total flat track bully. If there's easy ball to get, if it's an easy contest, then Tim Kelly's your man. If it's a tougher contest, he shrinks like everybody else in the Eagles side. But the difference is that he's a high-paid seasoned veteran and should be leading the way, and not really just riding on the coattails of everybody else and being interested only when it's easy. But look, stuck with Kelly for the rest of the season. Not, you know, obviously stoked with a 121, but you don't get to play Richmond every week. And Kelly has proven off some early form when the Eagles were up and about. So was he. But he has regressed as well as the Eagles sort of haven't done as well as you would like. Coming up next, Todd Marshall made his way back into the side. 41 wasn't ideal. Look, we'll continue to hold him. Hopefully he can get his score up. Has a relatively low break even still now. I think I could just check that. Yeah, so a break even of 31, so absolutely keepable. We'll look to move him on later, maybe as defender, maybe as a forward. We'll see what happens when he tops out, but hopefully some better scores coming our way from him. Rogers was omitted as we thought he was, and really could have saved us had we held out on this, because the whole Bo Allen backline captaincy loop was, again, I keep going back to what was driving these decisions, and it was wrong. But knowing that we had Rogers in the last game of the round as an omission and as a captaincy loop option would have been ideal. So that could have saved us, but we got impatient. We wanted Bont, who was one of the earlier games, brought him in, and that was that. So yeah, it was basically game over. Philippou, another 80, back-to-back, really good scores from Philippou. His break even is also trending down. It's back to 0, so he's totally reset his cash gen. May move up to be one of the better rookie selections by the end of the year. You know, maybe a top 10. Who knows? But it's been a long way home with Philippou, but happy we held him. We're going to rage trade him back there. For all long-time viewers would know that I was absolutely set on rage trading Philippou after he punched out that 25, and we didn't want him as a starting pick. So it's nice to have something go our way. And his swing role with the DPP is really going to help us out and help us finish our teams. Braden Cook, hero of the showdown. What a goal it was. What a game that was. Was pretty scrappy early, but that's what you get in a good contest of footy. Just if I can go on a bit of a rant, disgusting by the AFL that this could not be the standalone Friday night game. Look, the AFL is saying, you know, it's a scheduling issue now. They need to bump up the amount of Friday night games that they show. But I just find that's kind of typical now that they're showcasing, non-Victorian teams in the Friday night match, all of a sudden these teams don't get showcased. And I get that the Victorian teams pull in the big crowds, but if you never showcase these teams, then everyone's just going to stick in their bubble and just watch the Collingwoods and the Essendons and those kind of clubs, as poor as the product is that they put out. We'll never get to showcase our larger Australian Football League teams. And I just think that's shameful by the AFL. But anyway, it was a great match. It was the match I chose to watch, being an Adelaide fan. Fremantle being a family team of ours. It was disappointing I wasn't able to watch a lot of that game live, because it really was a good game of footy. But anyway, Cook was a hero, scored a great goal. Again, he's another guy. Should have checked his break even when we had it up there before. Break even of 48, continues to just truck along and make good cash. Look, potentially maybe someone that we end up with as our F6 for the end of the year, which, is whatever. His average is 77.8, which is surprisingly low. Obviously, he had some really poor scores, but I mean, he's put up 2 or 3 now in the 90s and late and high 80s. So Cook has that scoring potential, and if he gets stuck at F6, it wouldn't be the worst thing, and probably looks most likely. Okay, the guy next to him, Mr. Thilthorpe. Now, this is going to be the last time that we're going to call him he that shall not be named. Volderthorpe is going to show on my team. I'm going to stick him in flex and just leave him there for the rest of the year, pretend he doesn't exist, which we might just go ahead and do that now. Gave us a 58. Now, look, another pick that we were looking at this week in a Zach Bailey. The difference between him and Thilthorpe. So Bailey had 2 early shots at goals, which he nailed both of them, and then ended up producing a 40-point first quarter, which absolutely set up his score for the rest of the night. Thilthorpe had 2 early opportunities. One of them was gettable, but it wasn't an absolute, soda. But the second one, it's an easy set shot, slide angle, 35 meters out. Like a key forward just has to eat those, and his accuracy in front of goal has really been disappointing this year, not only as a Supercoach coach, but also as an Adelaide fan as well. It's been so disappointing. So anyway, he's stricken from our team moving forward, and I'll just rotate that through. So that's going to happen. So we're going to say bye to Thilthorpe. We're not going to trade him out. There's no point. There's not enough cash on his head for me to do anything with, and the double downgrade is just not viable at this point. I can't downgrade Thilthorpe to a rookie to then upgrade it later. It's just going to cost me 2 trades, which is just way too much for me to burden. And just to give you an idea of how poorly Thilthorpe is doing, his projected score is only 4 points more than Todd Marshall's this week. So there you go, Thriller. It's been a horror show. Pardon the pun there, but Volderthorpe, we'll just stick in flex and maybe he'll help our scores. But we're not showcasing our scores anymore. We're just showcasing our rank rise, like I said. And Thilthorpe's been banished to the shadow realm, never to be seen again. So here's our top 20. Here's our 22 now. This is what we're working with moving forward. Okay, like I said, guys, earlier, we shouldn't be looking for value picks anymore. However, with how the season has progressed and how some of these picks have turned out and the price we've paid for some of our premiums, I think I can still be helpful in highlighting some guys that still have value in their price. Now, the reason I would do this is because, like I said, we've paid some exorbitant prices for premiums this year. We've paid almost $700K. Now, this is for teams that are up in the top running. If you're in the top running, you've got Cherry, you've got Grundy, you've got Gawn, you've got Bontempelli. And if you've in the top tier, you've probably paid for them at peak price. So you've paid almost $700K for all of those selections. It's not actually possible for us to finish our teams paying that much for players without looking for some value to complete our team. So I'm just going to now showcase who I think the next crop of players are. And I've called them basically the Wayne Malera 4866s. Now, how I came up with that name was I started to look at my downgrade and upgrade targets for this week. And if I was just in a normal state of play, had I won my Supercoach Cup rank, it's sort of the price that I would be looking at this week for my upgrade target. Now, the reason I've called it Wayne Malera, because if you can afford Wayne Malera on two fronts, one, you don't have a whole slew of round 12 players, or if you don't have a nest of Adelaide players, which is kind of saying the same thing. But if you can afford to get to Malera, which I think he's still under 500k, he is my absolute number one pick of who to bring in this week as a value play. So then further down the line, you can pay a little bit more for your premiums to finish your teams. So if we just, I've just complete the move here. Get Naz into the back line, where he'll be. And then I'll showcase what I'm doing for my trades, which are they're kind of irrespective of the list this week. However, some of these guys are certainly on my target list to get in the full list. So I've got 15 guys. Like I said, Malera is not on the list. Anyone sort of above that 486 price range is not on the list as well. And I just need an honourable mention here for Bailey Dale, who absolutely should have been on this list. We'll just speak on Bailey Dale quickly. It seems year in, year out, there becomes this time for this, Marvel run that the Bulldogs get. And Bailey Dale certainly seems to score well over that period. Look, that seems to be happening now. Whether or not you think that means Bailey Dale is worth getting or not is totally up to you. But he does tend to find some form and some pretty big scores when that happens. So what did he come up with this week? So Bailey Dale. Oh, he's outside the price range. That's why he didn't make the list, actually. So season stats, he has a break even of 44. Punched out, so in the last 3 rounds, he's got a 101, a 113, and a 141. Now, those last 2 spike scores were both at Marvel. And then previously in the season, he had another game at Marvel, which he punched out a 102. And then his first game at Marvel was a 79. So, I mean, you can see that Marvel run kind of scoring coming into forward. So, again, we've got 15 guys on the list, all valued under 4866, I think bar one. And I did get the order of this a little bit wrong, which I've fixed on a subsequent slide. So let's just go through the list. At number 15, and I can't believe I'm actually saying this, and apologies for the size of the text on screen, but we've got Noah Anderson at 486,600, right on the money. Look, terrible pick, but I think he's really coming into value now. But we'll talk more in depth in the slide side of it, but I'll just run through who the players are and their prices for now. So at 15 is Noah Anderson. At number 14 is Aaron Cadman. Now, Cadman is kind of unique. Has a much lower score than much lower price than most of the guys that I'm putting on this list. However, Aaron Cadman, if we're not forgetting, was a number 1 pick in the AFL draft. Drafted as a key forward, but I've talked about this guy a couple of times on the channel, and I think at his lowered price, he could still be maybe not a keeper, but someone we bring into our side as if you're in a luxury position, you've got a lot of trades. Sort of how people are looking at Daniels for GWS. I think Cadman can potentially have more scoring potential than Daniels and can sort of get us up to that premium level. I just like the emergence of this player. It might be a player for next season at this point. But yeah, just keep an eye on him because he's really coming into his own. Obviously, the younger, taller, power forwards and ruckmen take a little bit longer to come into their bodies and their strength that they need to compete at AFL level as a key position. And I just think Cadman just opened the door of that part of his career. So to get him at, I think that's a 386, but the prices are more apparent in the next slide. So that, but he's only at 14th, so I'm not giving it an absolute smack bang endorsement. But he may be someone that, like a team like mine, might need to kind of gamble on if to finish our team. But anyway, see what you think. Let me know what you think in the comments. So coming up next, Joel Frazier, another guy, similar price range to Cadman, dual position. Look, he tends to score a little bit better when everybody is firing and into that side. Look, Liberatore won't be back for the Bulldogs, I wouldn't suspect anytime soon. But with Bontempelli obviously getting over is in a bit of an injury cloud this week. Another dumb reason to pick up Bontempelli under an injury cloud, but whatever. But yeah, with Bontempelli and who's the other guy? Ed Richards coming back into form. Maybe Frazier can sort of tag along and get in some better scoring. But again, more of a stepping stone rather than a keeper. But that dual position might come in handy. Potentially a flex spot if you consider him like that. Coming up next, Will Day. Now, I would never say that Will Day is a solid pick. However, if you're looking for value, you're looking for a pod, you're looking for someone that you can just stick in flex and just see how it goes, could get you the edge if you're brave enough to go there. He's due back. I think he's training with the main group, may come back through the VFL, I'm not sure, but he's only a week or two away. And then, you've got a couple of weeks to watch and see what he does. But I don't hate the Will Day pick. Like, I hated it as a starting pick, and I don't even love it now. That's why it's at 12th. But most of the value is gone now. So you've got to pick someone, I believe, if you've got top tier guys, you've got to pick someone to fill out your side. Okay. Next, Will Ashcroft. Now, again, is another guy probably looking at more of a next year sort of thing, but the value in his price right now is a little bit undeniable. Now, if this guy and, of course, another guy that I've mentioned before, if he ended up being your flex position as your 23rd selection, I don't think your team is looking that bad. But Will Ashcroft, definitely put him on your watch list for next year, because I have on pretty good authority that Lachie Neale is going to be traded away, and that might be common knowledge already. But I know Lachie Neale is on the move out of Brisbane. I think he's coming back to West Australia for the Eagles, but that's just what I heard. Will Ashcroft will move up in the pecking order in that Brisbane midfield, in which case his price, he'll be so sharply priced as he was this year and tempting. But I think he's not a bad shout to finish off our teams. Now, just watch this space, because Jared Berry's coming back into that team as well, who is a wingman, who has been playing a lot of midfield while Brisbane wait for a few of their guys to come back. So at number 10, the guy that that was a great segue there, Reptile, you blew it. Hugh McCluggage at number 10. Look, he's starting to work back in. They're giving him more and more time on ground. So this is the guy I think most people are waiting on. He will definitely be coming into my team. It won't be this week. I'm just going to watch one more week. Not even going to watch. I just don't think with a break even of 99 at a price of 460 odd or whatever he's at, that McCluggage is really going to race away with it. So definitely coming in. And I think a lot of teams will be looking to bring this guy in. I think it's perfectly fine to go this week. Should be getting close. He's not going to drop too much more money, but he could be in line for that spike score if his time on ground continues to ramp up. And look, it's the worst kept secret in footy that McCluggage is going to return and be a prime mover, which again is another reason why to shy away from Ashcroft. But also he may also be affected by that Berry return. So I kind of want to get all the data in there before I make the move. And I need more scoring punch. Next up at number 9 is Josh Dacos. Look, has been probably a value pick all year. Again, is not a pick. It's a pretty safe pick. if you've got a good, if you've got kind of good scoring, good position in your league, then maybe you look at a Josh Dacos. This is a total safe round out pick, and you can spend the money somewhere else in your team. But he's averaging, 99.9. Does what he does. He's a known quantity at this point, so not an amazing pick. But and Hubert Cluggage probably should be a lot further up the chain. But I think that at the moment we're still a little bit wait and see on Hubert Cluggage. But if we see that return, if we see those big scores, I mean, Hubert Cluggage goes straight to number one. Basically, is a number one get. Coming up next, Josh Worrell. Now, look, Worrell, I'm concerned about this pick. He's averaging okay and is still value at 472, but I think there's a bit of a gamble factor in here. Also has a round 12 bye, and probably, second guessing it should be a lot further down the list. But you could do worse than Josh Worrell to finish out your back line at 472,000. So again, we're shopping for value, but these guys all have some form of defection built in their price. That's why they are the value they are. But again, we need one, possibly two of these guys to finish out our teams. And I think that Hubert Cluggage will be the most brought in by coaches to finish off their teams for value. Okay, next up, Dane Zorko. Now, Dane Zorko actually on the list is a lot higher. I just messed up my watch list and now he's at 7th. I think he's actually at 3rd. Look, Dane Zorko represents absolutely great buying at 486,000. His average of 97.3 has been affected by that injury-affected score. It's just whether or not you trust the body, but the scoring potential is there, and he's an absolute bargain at 486 and one that I strongly endorse. But I have him in my side. Coming in 6th, Took Miller, 98.3, starting to get to that really, really sharp value buying. Again, forwards have not, good scoring forward options have not been plentiful this year. So Took Miller at that price is probably bottoming out. It's just whether or not you can afford to have that many round 12 buy players in your team. Coming up at number 5, Josh Tracy. Now, this is a pick that a lot of people aren't going to like. Key forward, disgusting. But I just think Tracy is, he's the number one key forward this year. I'll be doing, not to give too much away, but my future videos, I'll be doing who I think are going to be, in the top sort of 10, might do 8, might do 10 for each line as we finish out our teams. And just a sneak preview, I think Josh Tracy does make the top 6 forwards this year, averaging a 99.3, has had a couple of down weeks, but has shown that he can score without kicking big bags of goals, has had scores in the 90s of 100 with only sort of games of 1 or 2 goals. So 99.3. Not actually sure how many goals he got this week. But Tracy is not a bad shout. Coming in at number 4, Justin McInerney. Look, a safe as houses pick, just like Josh Dacos. Doesn't have the round 12 bye, so maybe more attractive there. As a forward, again, is high on the list because we are looking for these forwards, and his price has just sort of hovered around and stabilized. Look, he's looking to that 95 to 99 average round. Isn't a guy that's going to punch out some really bad floor scores for your team, so you can pick McInerney with confidence, and again, is value at that 472, and he is the one that is actually above, where is he? 4866s. No, he's still above that 486 mark at 472. So good value and good buying. Number 3, Hayden Young. Now, look, for us desperate coaches, we are really looking at Hayden Young at 412,000. Average of 89.8 because he's had injury affected scores and he's working back in. Look, this guy had some moments that I caught in that game where he absolutely just took over. And I think he's gone ahead, certainly of Brayshaw. And both him and Murphy Reid are 2 emerging players there. And if he can just stay on the park, man, if you can pick him up at low 400s, or if you picked him up at his starting price, which I think was around 380, an absolute bargain and one worth gambling on, I think, to get you over the line.
if you're sort of looking, looking on the outside, looking in like we are, and a lot of our league plays, to bring in Hayden Young now isn't the worst gamble you can make. Has relatively good scoring potential, and especially now that we've seen Brayshaw's role and moving more towards a defensive midfielder, I think Hayden Young is a better pick now more than ever. A safer pick from a scoring potential, but obviously the body is the big concern. Coming in at number 2 is my old mate Callum Mills. Look, again, another one of these rock solid veteran scorers. Probably doesn't have, the big scoring potential of a Hayden Young or a Zorko or, even a Tracy, but obviously is a defender anyway, and one I wouldn't mind having at my D6. And yeah, a good pick and a good value also. I think he's a 100-point scorer this year. Has a 92.6 average, but I think he can increase that to 100 between now and the end of the year. Has some good consistent scores. And at number 1, it's certified now Dan Houston at 97.6 average. Hit that form slump, which we were all shaken off by, but punched out 135. But I just think Dan Houston is absolutely certified. I think he's, if he's your D5, or if you have him already, you're keeping him now for the rest of the year. And is really good pick. He's rock solid. If you're smart, you take Dan Houston this week at the price and just enjoy the value and the scoring punch for the end of the year. But we're not smart. We're not taking Dan Houston this week. So yeah. But yeah, if you looked at him before, had him, traded him out, don't be afraid. Trade him back in. Part of Supercoach is admitting the mistakes and rectifying them. I'll be bringing back English in, even though, it's a bit of a different situation. I mean, it's going to be a double trade for a player there for me. Don't be afraid of it. Bring in Dan Houston with confidence now. The guy's absolutely certified premium. And off you go. Okay, so that's the full list. So just bringing up the next one. This is where we take a little bit more of a in-depth look at each pick. So Noah Anderson, Gold Coast, 486, 600. Has a round 12 bye, which is the knock on him. Has a break even of 112, which he could surpass, but hasn't done lately. So maybe you can afford to wait another week. Look, the positives here of this is a 600k starting pick, and he still has that 600k potential scoring. He's not old. He's still the captain. Maybe Gold Coast can find a bit of form when they get all their stars back. In which case, if you pick him up at 486 or 470 in the 470s, you might have yourself a real bargain there at M8. But, the knock is it a down year? Is it confirmed? Look, from what I've seen, he's just not... He's almost being like a flawed general out there. He's just pointing and kind of just hitting up on chip targets. He's not really throwing his body on the line and bursting away from those contests like we've seen. So maybe a down year, but if you pay 470 for him and it's a down year and he still holds, that high 90s or even at the ones, and he can still give you a 110 plus from the rest for the rest of the year. So if you didn't start with Noah Anderson, and you're looking for value when everyone else will be looking the other way, I don't mind the pick, even though as an owner this year has been absolutely disgraceful ride. Next, Aaron Cadman, like we said, 386,100, has a nice round 13 buy, a break even of 75, which you could totally get. Look, I'm looking at this guy as a cash gen stepping stone, maybe not as a keeper. For me, if I bring him in, he will be a keeper. But for you, if you're out there in front, I don't mind the 386. Maybe at McAndrew trade out sideways to Cadman to flex and then enjoy some cash. He could touch 500s, I reckon. But anyway, the knock on him obviously is a key position, is a position he plays. So if you don't like key forwards, like many of us don't, stay away. But look, I like Cadman, number 1 pick, opening the door to potential. Joel Frazier, 393, 900, has that round 16 buy, which is the other sticky one. Only has a break even of 74. So again, probably look at him as a cash gen stepping stone as well, sort of move. Also has that dual position, which is handy, but the knock on Joel Frazier is he's pumped out some really bad floor scores, so much to the point that I'm calling him basement floors. So just be aware of that. Maybe brought in as a cheap flex option with a potential to spike. But yeah. Okay, Will Day, 382, 200, round 14 bye, which is attractive. Has a break even of 97, which probably hold off anyway. If Will Day was to return, we've still got the 3 weeks or the 2 weeks to watch his scoring potential. They would be very cautious to bring him back. I've got him down here as a pod bolter. You'd be the only person in your league that has Will Day. And there's, I mean, it's got consistency doubts, which is not what I said. What I wrote was, come on, it's Will Day. We all know the problems that the battles that Will Day's had with keeping fit. But if you're a gambler like me, maybe Will Day at this point of the season gets you somewhere, gets you a few scalps in your league play while everyone scoffs at you. But they're probably already laughing at you if you're in a position like me. Okay, moving on to the second set of slides now. Okay, so we've got Will Ashcroft here at the bottom, so I'll start from the bottom up. 479, 600, round 14 bye, which is good. A break even of 87, which probably sees him bottoming out. So if you're at all interested in bringing in Will Ashcroft, I think now is the time. Like I said, perfect flex candidate. I would just have him, bring him in your midfield, pay an extra, not even 100k on a Tanner Bruin, and then have Will Ashcroft in your flex by the end of the season. I don't think is a bad play, but anyway, has a super high ceiling potential, can give you scores of 140 plus, which he has done this year, but unfortunately low midfield priority. His role down the pecking order just isn't quite there for now, but like I said, absolutely lock him into your team next year. So maybe we don't want Will Ashcroft to go nuts, but if we can get him anywhere under 500 grand, he's absolute starter in my team next year. Okay, Hugh McCluggage, 469, 500, round 15 bye. Break even of 98. I think it's 99 actually. Has that breakout potential. We're all sitting here waiting to see when it's going to happen for Hugh McCluggage, but the question mark is, will it actually happen? Will he do enough this year to justify the pick? I'm betting yes, as I'm sure most coaches are. Just for me, it's just not this week. I'm just going to wait. I know that price isn't going anywhere with a 99 break even. He may still see the same total this week that he did last week, which may cap his score. So he could potentially actually lose some money still this week. But then we're on board 100%. Josh Dacos, 478,000, round 14 bye, break even of 96. Look, just rock solid across the board. Reliable veteran I've got here. His price is going nowhere, but just has that cap scoring potential. But with cap scoring, he also seems to have a bit of a capped floor as well. So it's just rock solid, safe pick. Get him in as value and enjoy 90s for the rest of the season while you spend up the money somewhere else. Josh Worrell, 472, 800, should be lower on the list. Round 12 bye, which is gross. Break even of 122, which is gross. Still money to come out of that price. The positive is that intercepting, marking, rebounder type that can score well. The problem, the knock on Worrell is, one, he's in a bit of a slump, and the upcoming team changes. Look, he's probably put in his worst score of the year when Mitch Hinge came back into the side. Fortuitously for owners, Hinge went out of the team, which then saw Worrell sort of see a little bit of a spike of score, but he really didn't go on with the opportunity. So I actually think that Josh Worrell probably shouldn't be on this page at all. So I'm just kind of off that. Took Miller, 487, 400, round 12 bye, which is disgusting. 109 break even, probably doesn't get there this week, so we can still wait. He'll come in after the bye for me, I think. Strong scoring punch though, is good scoring potential. The knock is the team form, is a little down, and we still haven't seen enough of, all of the Gold Coast premiums all in the side together at once to really get a good gauge on what Miller's form actually is. What his role actually is when they were in the team all together, which is why he got his DPP forward role. He played a forward role, working into the midfield. So we like that a lot. But yeah, just to wait and see there. And like I said, that round 12 buys is really concern for the Took Miller pick. Josh Treacy, my boy, certified. So I've got 3 picks here that are ticked as certified. These are guys that are absolutely certified as premiums, as far as, in my opinion anyway. At 466,000 is an absolute bargain. Josh Tracy has a break even of 101. Could go either way. Look, this guy can spike. Has floor scores in the 70s, but can also, he will average around that 101. I think that's where he sits, which is why he's a top 6 forward for me this year. Is an absolute pod marking beast. Is a fun own to watch him just take over games. But obviously the knock is the key position volatility. But like I said, unlike these other key forwards, like some of the ones that I own, like he thou shalt not be named, can still score well without hitting the scoreboard because he gets up the ground, takes contested marks, score assisting, just puts his body on the line, just affects the contest at every opportunity. Next up, Justin McInerney, 472, 100, rock solid veteran, break even of 99. His price hasn't gone anywhere for a month. Just has a little bit of a low ceiling as far as his scoring potential. I think he has punched out a 141 this year. But there's no rush to get him. You can get McInerney at any point. And it's probably a better sort of selection than a Josh Dacos, but very similar sort of mode and kind of assessment there. And here we have Zorko in his proper spot in 4th position. 486, 900 is an absolute bargain. Only has the one real injury affected score, which is why he's at the price he's at. Round 15 buy, which is okay. Break even of 148, so obviously still a lot more price to come out of that, out of his, a lot more money to come out of his price. So you can wait, but when he bottoms out, look, turn around and just pick up Zorko. If he's your D5 to it and D6, you've got a really good defense there. He's my, I would say, D4, maybe swinging into D3 depending on form. But obviously the knock is, do you trust the body at his age? Has done the calf. Like I said, they took extra precautions. He said he was good to go in a week. They took 2. I think that's a good thing that they did. And it's probably the right management for him. Look, could get rested, but they've got an upcoming bye as well. So everyone's going to miss a week. Maybe Zorko misses an extra week with some rest heading either in or out of the bye. But that's two games missed. Potentially just 1, and I think he's absolutely 101 to 100. Look, I want to say 110 potential scoring, but probably that sort of 101 to 106 sort of average is where he's looking to be. So number 3, Hayden Young, 416,500 is an absolute bargain, worth the gamble. Round 14 buy, which is also attractive. He is a bargain emerging talent, and the only knock on him is durability questions, but look, I'm going to be bringing Hayden Young into my team. Break even of 59 maybe this week. I'm not sure, but we'll look at that over the next few days. But yeah, I'm on board the Hayden Young pick only because I'm in a desperate situation. But I think you can use him to get some real bargains and to take some scalps in your league play. Next up, number 2, Callum Mills. Again, that rock solid veteran as well, like a McInerney, like a Dacos, but I think he just averages that rung above. His average, I think, will leak into the hundreds. So with a break even of 83s and a score of 481, 900, sorry, a price of 481, 900, good buying. And if you're at all interested in Callum Mills, I think pick him up this week in your D6 and finish off your backline with a sub 500 pod pick. I think it's great. Okay, and at number 1, as we said, Dan Houston, 463,700 is the bargain of this whole list. Round 14 buy, which is great. A break even of a dismal 27, which he will absolutely shatter. Perfect role. He's settled into there now. We know who he is. The only concern is the earlier slump. He had 2 weeks back to back, which he wasn't looking like a great pick, but I think that's behind him now, and Dan Houston should absolutely be someone that you're bringing into your team. Okay, so there it is now. The deep dive. Okay, so if we go back into our team here and just look at the trades that I'm sort of weighing up this week, I am looking. Look, it's time to go on Grilled. There's no doubt about that. We'll be bringing Sarong into the midfield. And I'm going to have to go Now, look, this isn't a pick that a trade that I'm saying everyone should do, but we're bringing in Thomas Burton. Only factor is he's a 99k rookie. A lot of people will be looking to go there for the same reason. I don't think the job security is necessarily there. Like I said, Richmond's injury list is extensive, so I do have concerns about the job role, about the job. But at 99k, if you can make us some money, at least he's a body on field, so it is what it is. And then secondary to that, who else were we trading out? I think it was Blamires. Blamires was the second trade, moving Bo Allen into the back line. Watkins goes into the midfield, and we can just afford this guy. Bringing him in for scoring punch is Zach Bailey. So we complete those trades. That's what we're looking at. It leaves us very little cash in the bank. I think 4,500. So this is why, you know, I'm starting to compile this other list of players. And if you're shopping value this week, or you can sort of, in a better trade position, have a little bit more cash up your sleeve, maybe you can bring in a Zach Bailey, who has a really low break even. I think has a break even of 57. So that's the driving force for why I'm bringing him in. I think he's a top 6 lock, ahead of a McInerney, ahead of a Took Miller now, I think, as well. Averaging 103.6 and happy to bring him in for that scoring punch, and hopefully he can help us improve our rank. But look, I'm not set on these trades. I'd like to bring in a couple of those value guys, but yeah, like I said, if you're in position with a lot of cash in the bank and you're looking to do a double upgrade and maybe one downgrade this week, then maybe a Zach Bailey in conjunction with a Houston, and then work a Burton or an Edwards or a Cummings, if that's how you feel, into your side. I don't think is the worst case scenario for your team. So anyway, I'll end it there, guys. A lot of rambling there. We're looking for value. 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 But hopefully we can increase our rank, and I can continue to help you guys with these budget picks to sort of level out your team. Just one final thing. We're waiting on 2 other players to round out our scores, honourable mentions, and that is Tim Taranto, who I think when he comes back, has a huge break even. I think it was 169 or something massive. Will drop a lot of cash. Should see himself come under 500 as well. Absolutely lock for one of your targets in your consideration if you need those value picks to round out your side. I don't have flex anymore, so he was going to be my flex spot, but that position has been gone in the shadow realm, as we like to say. So he'll be one of my midfielders. The other will be McCluggage, and then I'm probably looking at Finn Callahan as well to round out my midfield, which is not an impressive midfield. And then, yeah, further down the track, I'm probably looking at Max Holmes. I'm hoping he gets DPP, and I can put him in that last defensive spot. So that's why I'm waiting there, and that's why I'm not going a Dan Houston or some of these others, and why I'm steering away from Lockie Ash as well. His role seems to be gone. But anyway, guys, if you've followed me this far, thanks again for watching. Drop us a follow, drop us a like, send a comment in. Let me know how your team's going. Let me know if any of my picks have helped you or hindered you this year. You're hating me. Like, it's all welcome. I love the banter. So anyway, I'll sign off there, guys. I've been the 8-Bit Reptile. You've been amazing.